Season 2 of the Netflix original The Hollow dropped recently, and I figured now is as good a time as any to talk about it since this show became relevant again. This video will include massive spoilers for seasons 1 and 2, so if you want to experience this show without the influence of this video, there you go. Enough of the introductions though, let's get talking about season 2 of this show and why I was pretty underwhelmed by it. There haven't been many shows that excited me to the same degree as The Hollow. I've been excited for shows in the past, but very rarely do I see a trailer of a show and expect it to be magical. The Hollow was that show for me. It has one of the single coolest premises I've ever seen presented in an animated television show. 3 teenagers wake up in a plain white room. They have no memories of how they got here, no idea of what they're supposed to do, and are forced to figure out what's going on through clues and challenges which are presented to them as they explore a world that could have anything waiting for them. It's straight up like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Mix it all together with an art style that I've loved since Total Drama Island, and you've got a recipe for a show that seems tailor-made for me specifically. And you know what? These elements of the show, the ones that I was most excited for, largely hold up. The premise was just as engaging as I had hoped, the presentation was great, and the story looked to be headed in a very interesting direction. Unfortunately, as the episodes went by, I continually felt like something was more and more wrong, but I couldn't quite place my finger on what it was. Now that I have completed season 2, however, I think I've figured it out, and it is this show's sheer amount and extremity of plot contrivances. I haven't rewatched the first season for the making of this video, and I don't particularly remember this issue with the show being as prevalent in season 1, so I'm going to be primarily discussing season 2. A plot contrivance is basically when something highly unlikely happens in a story for the sake of taking it in the direction that the author wants, and it often results in frustration for the audience as it puts a strain on their suspension of disbelief. If you've been following my content for a while, you have no doubt been exposed to my detailed criticisms of this kind of thing in other videos, so I won't go into depth about why plot contrivances are bad. When most people think of plot contrivances, they think of stuff like the main character summoning a new power out of nowhere to save the day. And while this is absolutely not an uncommon flaw for animated television shows to have, I think that plot contrivances can be even more frustrating when they are used to create conflict rather than solve it. And this is where The Hollow comes into play. Season 2 gets off to an amazing start just like Season 1, but it quickly falls into the same issues, only even harder. The main goal this time around is in making contact with Weirdy, so the main characters, and thus the audience, can get some answers as to why everyone is still in the Hollow. The main conflict in this season is that getting Weirdy to pay them any attention is a huge pain in the ass, and here's the plot contrivance part: for no reason. In episode 3, Adam, Kai, and Skeet are on a boat in the water, and who should they see but Weirdy on the dock. The potential solution to their problem is right in front of them, and yet when Skeet sees the other team lose the game, he just stops in his tracks. Weirdy was maybe 100 feet away from him, and even if we assume that Skeet's super speed is less effective in the water, and even if we assume that he would have to be right next to Weirdy to notice, Skeet still has...
That's it! Weirdy!
this much time to get over to the dock. Even if you think that maybe Skeet was just that distracted from getting the idea to kill himself, in episode 6 the gang does in fact make contact with Weirdy, and he assumes that they are all coding errors. Now, one could argue that Weirdy just brushing them off like this is illogical enough, considering that the very fact that they are self-aware and understand that they are in the Hollow should be enough to warrant looking deeper into this situation. Which is absolutely true. However, I'd like to direct your attention to the fact that none of the main characters say anything other than "we're real, what's going on," even when Weirdy makes it clear that he thinks they are coding errors. There are probably hundreds of ways they could convince him that they are conscious. Right off the top of my head, Vanessa could say that she cheated at the game. They could just yell fuck or any other expletive, which the devs obviously wouldn't have programmed the Sims to say, or do exactly what they did in episode 8 and call him by his real name. Instead, all 5 of them just stand there doing nothing. It takes until episode 8 for the team to finally get to Weirdy and explain what's going on, when it should have happened in episode 3. Because of a plot contrivance, it's hard not to feel like half of this entire season was a complete waste of time. But this issue doesn't just affect the overarching story, it also is littered throughout the interpersonal conflicts of the characters. Mira gets impatient and wants to search the Hollow Games company building immediately instead of taking the logical choice of searching around their houses for clues and searching Hollow Games the next day once Kai could actually come with. Skeet is constantly trying to kill himself even after he agrees not to because they don't know if the same rules that apply to the other players apply to them now. Kai just regresses back to being the annoying one. Vanessa passes up several opportunities to come clean about her cheating, which would have been useful information from the start. The girl from the actual team playing this game of the Hollow is the most stubborn character in existence. The list goes on and on. I give special attention to Adam and Reeve's relationship in this regard though, because it is, in my opinion, the worst offender. Adam and Reeve don't get along. That's it. They just don't get along for no reason, and this is a frequent source of conflict in this season, most notably being the reason the team gets split up in episode 7. Now, although I wouldn't be particularly stoked about it, I would be able to accept this at face value. Sometimes you just don't work well with people. For whatever reason, your personalities don't line up, and you find yourself in conflict with them all the time. However, this show goes out of its way to dispel that as a possible reason for why these two are arguing all the time by having them make up once again for no reason. Now, you might be thinking, actually, they only disliked each other so much because of a misunderstanding. Reeve thought that Adam wanted to kick him off the team even though he didn't. And that would be the case, but you gotta keep in mind that Mira specifically mentions that the two of them have always been argumentative, and think about it, we're talking about two players of a game that literally wipes your memory before starting. If Adam and Reeve had any reason to dislike each other that didn't involve their baseline personalities, that wouldn't play a role in how good they are at the Hollow. Now, I'm not saying that it would be impossible for them to work out their issues, but it would be incredibly unlikely, especially for it to happen in the span of roughly one day. What makes these kinds of conflicts especially hard to swallow for me is that they all feel like massive wastes of time. The solution to nearly every conflict in season 2 is glaringly obvious, and you just have to wait upwards of multiple episodes for the characters to catch up to the audience. Look, I don't think this show is terrible. It has plenty of good, even amazing elements. I thought that the season 1 finale had destroyed this show's ability to maintain dramatic stakes moving forward, but season 2 gets around this issue in a pretty genius way. First of all, it establishes that although our characters are still in the Hollow, the rules are somehow different, which injects a similar sense of mystery which made the beginning of season 1 so strong. Then, by killing off Skeet, the dramatic stakes of the show are amplified significantly because it has been confirmed that death is a very real possibility, and it advances the mystery of the plot by forcing the characters, and thus the viewer, to wonder what the difference is between the main group and the team we saw lose in episode 3. And the big reveal that the people we have been following are actually just copies of the memories and consciousness of the original players, and it was genuinely fantastic. I was not expecting this show to tackle the concept of AI having consciousness, but it does it, and it works incredibly well. The moment when you find out that these characters are technically nothing but lines of code invokes a certain lack of sympathy for them. Your first thought is, oh, their real selves are fine, so it's okay if these copies of them get deleted, but then Adam cuts off that train of thought.
All I know is we're real to us. We have memories and emotions and feel pain. You've gotta help us.
What would you do if your computer put text on screen that said, I am conscious, I have feelings and memories and feel pain, please don't destroy me? As people living in the 21st century, it may not be very long before we have to seriously consider that question, and the fact that it's being addressed in a kids show and that it is handled with a surprising amount of maturity is simply impressive. I was initially so excited to watch The Hollow because of what it was in concept, and as I got further and further into it, that statement became truer and truer. The appeal of The Hollow is the concept of it. The concept of 3 kids waking up with no memories in the most extreme escape room ever is really cool. The concept of a virtual reality video game that glitches out and traps the players inside of it is really cool. The concept of a bunch of digital consciousnesses which are exact copies of their real-world counterparts living their normal lives in a digital world is really cool. But in order to get to all of that cool, you have to sit through a lot of bullshit, and at least for season 2, I don't think it's all that worth it. Looking forward, I am hopeful but not all that optimistic. As is the case with literally every show ever, if they just focus on the good elements of this show and cut out the bad ones, season 3 will certainly be a treat, but I can't ignore the fundamental issues I see with what we've gotten so far. I am absolutely interested in where this story will go from here on out, but to describe my feelings towards The Hollow as excited might be a bit of a stretch. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of season 2 of The Hollow down in the comment section. Do you completely agree with me in every way, shape, and form, or do you think I'm wrong on every single point? There is no in between. If you enjoyed, I would strongly urge you to check out some of the other videos on this channel, as this kind of video essay, analytical thought piece content is pretty much all I do. And if you really enjoyed, consider dropping a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell icon to get notified of when I upload in the future. With that said, have a wonderful day, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.